Hi, gang.
All right. Hey, Bob, hope you're doing well. So I'm going to kick us off now. Greetings,
Yeah,
greetings,
absolutely.
greetings, greetings.
Hey, really quick, hold on 1 second. I'm gonna let a couple more folks in.
Yeah, let them
And
in.
Charles, I'd like to make just a quick little announcement or two at the beginning and end of this.
Okay.
First of all, my apologies to everybody. I actually listed this as the wrong time on some of our communications out there. So that's totally my oops. So I apologize for that. So anyway, on future ones, we'll make sure that everybody's invites are have the correct time. So my apologies there. Real quick, I would like to share just a couple things, and I'll share some more at the end. We are potentially planning on doing an event at the near the end of the year, at the tail end of October, right? The topic will be the future of money, governance, and the law.
Nice.
And Charles, are you sharing your screen during this presentation, or who's going to be sharing their screen?
Any one of the co-hosts can share, so you're more than welcome to if you like.
I
All
just put share screen on, Charles, so Gerard can share if you.
All right, excellent. So let's see, screen two. So the reason why we're doing this is, have any of you been to any of our annual achievement awards in the past?
Yep.
Anybody?
Yo,
Really? Really
yes,
nobody?
yes, have been. Steve's been there.
Yeah.
It's
So every year we give out an
Alejandro.
annual achievement awards for leadership, innovation, social impact, courage, and now we have an organization one. And so we normally give these out every year. This year we're looking at doing it at our event, the Future of Money Governance, the Law, and the it's not locked in yet. We can't actually lock it in until October 1st. But if everything works out the way we plan to do it, then we should be doing this at the United States Capitol Congressional Auditorium, where the president addresses both houses of Congress. So the conference during the day will be our typical conference talking on different topics related to the future of money governance and the law. And then as part of that event, we'll be doing these awards. So anybody can nominate anybody if you want to. So if you go to that page that I dropped in the chat, you can nominate people for any of these different topics. The way it works is, just in a nutshell, those nominations are submitted. It does cost a little bit, I think like $15 or something like that, to nominate. Let me just see. 15 or 25. That's just basically to keep us from getting thousands of nominations that we have to weed through. So and then those nominations come in. The past winners then take those nominations down, select them to 3 finalists, and then we open it up to the public for voting on the 3 finalists.
This was one of the awards that Emilio had won.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. So anyway, I wanted to just tell you about that, and then I got a couple sort of announcements at the end today, but I wanted to make sure everybody had an opportunity to, number one, at least put on your radar screen that we're looking at the sometime last week in October to do the Future of Money Governance and Law in Washington, D.C. at the U.S. Capitol, and if you know anybody that would qualify for an award, and this is not the kind of award you can buy, right? Certainly for $25, but so it is 100% a merit-based award, right? Charles, that's all I have. Thank you, my dear friend.
No, I appreciate it. And so, ladies and gents, those that don't know, you just heard from the executive director and co-founder of the Government Blockchain Association. That is who is hosting this call. And so we'll allow him to do an introduction a little later on. I do want to get us started today. First, I want to greet everyone. Greetings and welcome to the Cryptocurrency Working Group. This is our public forum for February 2025. So the Cryptocurrency Working Group, or the CWG, as I call it, we are a government blockchain association entity. And Bob, you do have co-hosts, so if you don't mind letting people in the room and such, and then we'll have the ability to save the chat later. So, but the CWG, we're part of the GBA, and what we focus on is educating members and really the broader community about cryptocurrency and the underlying technology, blockchain tech, and of course their potential to really drive sustainable development globally. And so our purpose is to educate both public and private sector professionals on the strategic use of cryptocurrency to optimize financial outcomes, secure digital assets, and really enhance operational efficiency. So I'm Charles Anderson. I do business intelligence and resource development for EazyBot. EazyBot is a software company that helps users earn profit in crypto via automated algorithmic crypto trading. And our role with the Government Blockchain Association, or the GBA, is to really assist with generating revenue and building out the blockchain maturity model, services supplement, and of course, assisting with the CWG, the Cryptocurrency Working Group. Our co-chairs for the CWG are Dr. Christopher Smithmeyer. He's the co-founder of Black Wallet Limited, and Dr. Muhammad Omar Ali. He's the co-founder of EazyBot. And so their LinkedIns are in the chat for you. Again, you can save the chat. We'll make sure it's in there. But our topic for discussion today is cryptocurrency regulation, past and future trends. So we'll discuss insights into global and US regulatory landscapes for cryptocurrency. And so did you know that cryptocurrency is over 16 years old, having been publicly released back in January of 2009 via the Bitcoin protocol, right? And so with only about 10% of the global population using cryptocurrency, it's relatively new technology, Lates. So more and more people are becoming interested in hearing about and wanting to better understand cryptocurrency and its various use cases, prominent of which is generating revenue, accumulating wealth. Yet there's still that lack of lack of certainty, that skepticism about the technology, regardless of all the advancements and the wealth already acquired by users globally. I mean, many still feel that cryptocurrency is not a thing. It's not real. It's not a viable option to be considered when discussing things like financial freedom. And as the famous Rick Edelman would say, we had an opportunity to have a meeting with Rick Edelman, GBA and Rick Edelman. He's a financial advisor, debonair, and he would say something like, the time for being fearful of entering into the crypto markets has long since passed. The time for timidity is over when it comes to cryptocurrency. In that second all-time high for Bitcoin in 2017, there were less than 31 million crypto users worldwide. And so we've seen over a 2,600% increase in users over the past 7+ years. That's a lot of adoption and onboarding and education regarding the cryptocurrency space. So from 2023, there was a count of about 670 million users. To 2024, we saw that 24% gain in users alone. Cryptocurrency users number now above 830 million globally. And it's expected to reach 992+ million by 2028. That's 4.5% compound annual growth. I mean, this kind of rapid increase of global users is indicative of cryptocurrency becoming a mainstream financial tool worldwide. So hesitation related to cryptocurrency can really lead to missed opportunities. And we've seen missed opportunities related to technology happen before with so many different technologies. And so the United States is sitting on about 16% of the population of the US using crypto. And so you got India and China as world leaders being like number 1 and number 2 in terms of countries with most crypto earners. And the new administration for the United States, they vow to make the world, they vow to be a world leader in cryptocurrency, right? So you gotta look at the other side of this. However, right, consider that venturing into volatile markets, new technologies, without consumer competency, without consumer safeguards, it's often proven to be a recipe for disaster. We're talking fraud and scams and loss of earnings or savings. I mean, you name it, right? So what safeguards are in place today? What policies, what standard operating procedures have been enacted or implemented to protect consumers and ensure economic inclusion. What fair and safe practices are around the security of users' assets is pivotal, and it's the primary concern. And we want the technology to be a viable ecosystem for consumers and governments alike. So what are we doing, right? So that's a bit about what we get to discuss today with our guest speakers. You may hear discussion on U.S. government stance on digital financial tech. You might hear about the strategic Bitcoin reserve or the crypto czars policy or international trends in cryptocurrency regulation, or even someone brought up the aftermath of the rug pull situation in Argentina, or what the United States has done in our first 30 days with the new administration related to crypto. But awesome to have our guest speakers on board. I want to have the guest speakers introduce themselves. I'm proud to know them and excited that they'll be leading our discussion today. So I want to step out of the way for our Government Blockchain Association guest speakers for this edition of the Cryptocurrency Working Group. So guest speakers, you should be able to unmute. Come on in and introduce yourselves. We're happy to have you. And thank you for your time today.
I think that's me, Ryan.
Yes, sir.
Good to be here. Thanks for having me. Thanks for the invite. Always happy to share what I can and point people in the direction of further knowledge and learning. Just to point out too, I very quickly posted in the chat the very recent from yesterday, the Senate Banking Committee meeting, talking to folks from Kraken and others, discussing really how do we stay competitive and in fact take that leadership in crypto in the United States and not lose ground to other jurisdictions that have taken some steps forward, but there's still a lot to be discussed and a lot to be figured out. And so that was a really good conversation. I haven't quite finished listening to the whole thing myself, but I did get a little over halfway through it. And there's some really, really important points there about how regulation plays into the opportunity to grow and innovate in this space. And how important it is to really bring all parties to the table and find consensus. And a quick introduction myself, been with GBA since 2017 as the Vermont chapter lead. I'm Ryan Munn, I'm based in Vermont, been recording, podcasting, audio and video about blockchain, as well as other important emerging innovations and impact innovations around the country, and work directly in infrastructure, fiber, data centers, cloud, and really strive to understand where the rubber meets the road in terms of both the physical needs in our environment to serve crypto and serve decentralized systems, as well as the need on both sides for education for the crypto leaders and Web3 leaders to learn about our traditional institutions and sort of the history that leads into where we are today, as well as bring those leaders from traditional organizations, public access, libraries, our institutions that unfortunately have been losing trust over many years in the US, that can learn about this technology as a tool to help them regain that trust and continue moving forward on their missions of access, knowledge, preservation, and learning. So thank you again for having me. And I'm sorry for my voice.
No worries. And Ryan, I've seen you in other working groups be very insightful and really fabulous. So we're happy to have you. We don't want you to save any of that fabulous for other working groups. Make sure you share some of it with us today. I do see Dr. Smithmeyer is here as well. I want to also have Marcus V. I'm not sure how to pronounce your last name. Please go ahead and do your introduction, and then we'll have Dr. Smithmeyer come in and introduce himself.
Thanks, Charles. I appreciate it. And Ryan, good to listen to you as well. So my name is Marcus Veith. I'm a partner with Grant Thornton, like global accounting advisory firm. Have been member of the GBA for the last 2 or 3 years. Have also spoken at the Future of Money conferences and part of a couple of the working groups. So pleasure to be here and talk to you. So I mean, as Ryan already pointed out, right, there's a couple of interesting developments. I don't want to necessarily rehash the Banking Senate Committee updates, but the points I wanted to just highlight from a broader perspective, right? Finally, I mean, we all know the old administration was kind of like very against crypto. The SEC was
Side
pursuing
crypto, yeah.
everybody. The SEC has pursuing everybody, lawsuits left and right. And from my perspective, being also like an audit partner, right? I mean that kind of like prevented a lot of the large accounting firms from being associated with crypto companies because nobody wants to be involved with a client that has like an SEC lawsuit at hand because it could cost a lot of headache, pain, and cost that nobody reimburse you for when you get involved with those clients, right? So we've seen some of the lawsuits being settled, being dropped, which is great. Trump has declared, the Trump administration has declared crypto a national priority, right? There's like the presidential executive order that talked about that, the formation of a crypto working group. In the 6 months, they're supposed to come up with regulatory recommendations. And then also we have the Genius Act, which focuses on stablecoins, right? Stablecoins is something I'm very passionate about. I see stablecoin have real use case value from a point of view that you have the ability to quickly, cheaply transfer funds across the world. And as we have like a global audience and a global membership, right? If I can send money safely, quickly from point A in one country to point B in a different part of the world, that's just very beneficial. And since last fall, we've seen like an upswing again in new crypto stablecoin token projects. And we've also seen that like traditional payment providers have acquired stablecoin issues, right? Like Stripe has acquired Bridge. So I'm very passionate about stablecoins and what they bring to the table. Again, right? There's been a lot of the other interesting fact is I was at and spoke at the Bitcoin conference in Nashville last year when Trump spoke Saturday and Friday. RFK was speaking, right? RFK was proposing a strategic crypto reserve that the government is using funds to purchase crypto. Trump didn't go as far and say he would do that. He basically said, yeah, well, we're not gonna sell the dish assets that we're already confiscating, right, and holding. In the past, they've always had to liquidate them, and now he's considering building up a strategic reserve, right? And it's like easy if you have a zero cost basis, if you seize assets and hold on to them, that makes actually a lot of sense. The other thing I just wanted to point out as the last point from the Bitcoin conference is that Trump said he wants to double the energy output, right? That time I was like, because he was talking about mining, he wants all the Bitcoin to be mined in the US. And then he said, and I want to double the energy output, right? I mean, at that time I was like, if you look at Europe, right, if you as a politician would say, I want to double the energy output, I mean, you'd be publicly beaten up because it's all about energy consumption. And with the war in Ukraine, Russia was a major energy provider to many European countries, right? So energy preservation is the mantra there. But in hindsight, right, it makes a lot of sense with the energy output. We're now entering a world with like much more AI focus, and you need data service to power that, right? So you need the energy to power that. So that makes actually a lot of sense with the energy increase in energy output. I just hope it's going to be renewable energy and not just fossil fuels that not going to be helpful to the environment.
Yeah, because we're always promoting sustainable development. So I
Yeah.
understand. So we're glad you're here, Marcus. We appreciate your presence. Thank you for adjusting your calendar to fit into things.
Of course.
Dr. Smithmeyer, you're in the house. Are you available? Go ahead and do your introduction. Let everyone know who you are if you're able. And then we'll jump into the discussion.
Hi, everybody. Yep. Hi, everybody. I'll be real quick because I'm here to listen to the speakers. I'm just here as one of the group leads. My name's Dr. Chris Smithmeyer. I've been with the GBA since I'm sure Gerard remembers when I joined the GBA, but I'm working in this group. I'm also the lead author for the tokenomics supplement and the smart contracts audit supplement, and we're starting to work into business services supplements as well. And anybody that wants to get involved, definitely join the group because I think crypto is going to be a big topic, and being involved with this working group helps us work to develop things to recommend to policy leaders. And we really want to have as many voices here as possible.
Thank you, Dr. Smith-Meyer. We are always looking forward to your insights and your presence. So much appreciated. So I want to start by asking a kind of I want to say a basic question, but I think people need to kind of understand it and get a better grasp of what's happening. And so we talk about Bitcoin. Most people are familiar with Bitcoin. When you say cryptocurrency, that is probably the first thing they think about, right? And so for the guest speakers, how do you feel about this? What role do you see Bitcoin playing in future government reserves? Why are governments even considering it now, as opposed to maybe 5-10 years ago? What are your thoughts?
Well, a little bit tongue in cheek, I'd say for the same reason they confiscated gold in America many years ago, right?
Yes.
It's a deflationary asset. And the way I think about Bitcoin is it really is and has been the tip of the spear, in that we've had the capability of creating blockchain technology quite a while before Bitcoin came into being. But it was that token of Bitcoin attached to that blockchain technology that sort of forced the doors open. And that's in many ways in the technology itself, in the economic systems around the world, and in the public sphere of consciousness, and being aware of the sort of possibilities of alternative ways of thinking about money and economics. And so the Bitcoin white paper, I always encourage people, go back and read it. It's not a long read, 30 minutes, 20 minutes. If you're a fast reader, you can get through it pretty quick. And maybe read it again, because it's not so much about the technology as it is about this sort of elegant balance of incentives combined with technology that, again, acts as the tip of a spear that opens the door and begins to penetrate the veils of obscurity that have prevented us from or enabled the sort of, whether it's corruption or just human error that exists in our systems today, to become exposed so that we can learn about them and continue to review, adjust, proceed, and iterate on that process to make a better system for everyone. And that's what struck me when I first started learning about Bitcoin and kept digging in. And every other token, to some degree or another, has sort of been under that same premise. To your point, some of them have been not well managed and have been rug pulls. But the other thing that I would always point out to folks is that those cases of misleading or fraud or any kind of malactor impact have been very short-lived in relatively speaking, compared with historical traditional system-based frauds and embezzlements. In fact, many cases, those historical cases could have or would have continued on for a long time if it weren't for some event or some occurrence that kind of forced the door open. Whereas in the crypto space, these things are hot flashes in a pan, and within 12 to 18 months or less, sometimes much less, we see the truth. And that's the fundamental of this technology, is if somebody throws up a meme coin and then pulls a rug pull, everybody knows about it. It's right there, right? If anybody's putting out a project and kind of not exposing certain details and aspects, even if it lasts for a while, there's usually some early whistleblowers going, hey, there's something wrong with this, right? And so, when you see a statistic like, I think it was 2022 or something when I read it, that the IRS associated like 95% of their investigations, with crypto, it's like, yeah, because they can look at a blockchain and go track down where the problem is. What that's telling me is that only 5% of their investigations had to do with cash in the traditional markets. So there's a whole bunch of criminals getting away with it. That's not part of that statistic and not part of crypto.
Very good premise to look at. And we know those, I guess they call them the leading banks, the top 6 banks they've been under investigation before for things like fraud and manipulating user data, and they've had to pay billions of dollars in fines, but they're still operating, right? And those are long-term kind of, I should say, institutions that have been rife with fraud and scams. Crypto being 16 years old, we're uncovering scams, just like you said, like that, because of the technology. So that's great. So, and for everyone, and I do want to give, pardon me, I do want to give Alex Shorter, Mr. Shorter's in, I do want to give him opportunity to introduce himself. But in context of what you just said, discussion about things like anti-money laundering or AML policies or KYC policies in the context of growing crypto adoption. What are you guys' thoughts on AML, KYC, and anything that is helping to safeguard a consumer? Now, I take a bit of a blunt stance to this. I feel that if you're going to enter into a space, right, you should be well versed with how that space operates before you enter in. And so if you are subject to scam and frauds and whatever else is going on in the space, it is because you lack the knowledge or the know-how to operate within that space. But there is an importance for things like AML and KYC and regulation to protect consumers against fraud and scams. Do you feel that we're there yet? Or do you feel that there's much more development that needs to be done to help protect consumers?
I can take a
Yep,
take a
go ahead.
stab at that, and I have a slightly different view, right? I mean, I don't view AML BSA compliance to be consumer protection. It's more like complying with sanctions, right? I mean, I've been working in the crypto blockchain space since 2014. So I've worked with like a lot of large players, and I forgot to mention, right? I'm our national crypto industry lead at my firm, and we worked with like a number of the largest firms that are out there in like various capacities. So in the early days, a lot of you know, if you operate an exchange, let's take an exchange for example, right? If you operate a crypto exchange in the US, right, you're subject to FinCEN oversight, right? I mean, you have to comply with the AML BSA requirements, right? And you have to check the identity of your users, right? But in the early days, when everybody says, "Oh, look, we're not a bank, we're not subject to regulation, right? We're running a tech company." Many crypto exchanges and other trading places let users open accounts with just like an email address, right? And
Right.
I think those exchanges, those players learned a lesson over the years because they paid like millions of dollars of fines. So the AML, AML compliance requires that companies do identity checks, right? KYC procedures, get a copy of an ID, use like analytical services to make sure it's like not a deep fake, right? It's kind of like more to comply with sanctions. The other aspect from a safety perspective, right? We just had like the Bybit hack, and
Right.
maybe we can talk about that a little bit. I'm also interested what the other speakers think about it. I mean, that must have been a very elaborate plot, right? Because they were able to hack into the cold storage asset, which is typically, you know, they kept offline. The private keys are written on a piece of paper or stored on an offline laptop. So that's I think where the consumer protection comes into play, right? The how secure is the system and the setup of those platforms. Excuse me, losing my voice. Where people, you know, trust companies and store and custody their assets, right? And after the FTX collapse debacle, there was a big push to say, I mean, there was always been the saying, not your keys, not your coins, right? If you have an account with any of the large players, you don't own the coins, right? I open an account with like a large exchange and think, oh, I have 10 Bitcoin with that exchange. No, you don't have 10 Bitcoin. If the exchange goes bankrupt, you have the equivalent of a claim against that platform, but you cannot say, give me my coins back. It's the same thing with a bank, right? I mean, you deposit money with the bank goes bankrupt, 250,000 insured by the FDIC, everything beyond will depend if somebody's taking over bailing out the bank or not.
Right. So you mentioned the Bybit debacle. They proclaim that they are solvent and they have enough funds to cover that kind of loss. It was in the billions of dollars. But that would go towards the discussion of implementing policies whereby consumers can be protected if they're using your service. They got enough funds to cover their loss. So I mean, even if they did get hacked, right? They lost the funds, but they're solvent. So none of the users would experience that loss because of the solvency. That's a policy that's in play to kind of help or protect consumers. So
if I could just make one more point, right?
Absolutely.
There's also something I discovered, working early on in that sector, right? I mean, people think you have an account with any of the large players and say, hey, look, the exchange gets hacked and they get the assets stolen. Well, they have to make me whole again. That's actually not the case, right? Like I've had instances where we had to investigate the legal structure of the user agreements, right? And the agreements basically say, hey, you hold your crypto with us. If you get hacked, it gets stolen, it's your loss, not ours, right? So if an exchange, I mean, typically, right, from a publicity marketing perspective, they make the users whole. They don't want to have anybody suffering a loss. But in theory, if they play hardball and say, look, we're going to shut down the business anyway, we're just not responsible for that loss because you signed a user agreement that any loss that occurs through theft or hack is your responsibility.
That's right.
Ours.
That's right.
Yeah.
You're right. You're absolutely right. So, and that, I guess, in that spirit, that may be a policy that might need to change, right? Where the cryptocurrency exchange does investigate the fraud or the hack, and make sure they understand the onus or the source, and they do what's right by the consumer. Drop in a bucket as far as the amount of funds that they would lose from a hack like that. Even this biggest one, again, the company said they were solvent, so they had enough funds to cover the loss. Right. They can definitely protect the consumer. But good point. Alex, if you are available, come on in and introduce yourself and let everyone know what you do for the GBA. We are happy to have you. I'm sorry I didn't see you in the beginning, so happy to have you, my friend.
How you doing? I'm happy to be here. Just soaking in the information and agreeing with a lot of what you have to say. To anyone who I haven't met or introduced myself to yet, I'm Alex Shorter. I'm a member of the GBA. I'm the U.S. Global Lead of the GBA and also the Project Director. So I've been working with all the different groups in the GBA, all of them, learning about all of the different case studies and ways blockchain can be implemented into the structures, especially smart city infrastructures. And what I do agree with the crypto is what you said, Charles, about it needing more compliance. And long as you can cover your losses and protect the consumer, I believe that'll be the most important part. So far, it seems like we can use more work with that.
Absolutely.
To protect the consumers, because this is a big thing. We're actually changing the way we barter and around the whole world, and money is changing. And this is an opportunity where we can actually combat against poverty, different opportunities to help different countries. And I think that we're in a good place, but I think we still could use a lot more protection around the currency space.
Sure. And then for the guest speakers, we may be behind as far as our adoption globally of cryptocurrency, but with the new administration, we're starting to run that race, right? Some of those barriers to forward progress have been removed, the hindrances absolved, right? So we're starting to run the race. What are your thoughts on this strategic Bitcoin reserve? So elaborate on the potential economic impacts of more states adopting Bitcoin as a strategic reserve asset. And we can include in the conversation, well, what are the implications of releasing or launching a CBDC? I'm not a fan, right? I'm not a fan. Like Marcus, I love the stable coin as far as the cryptocurrency goes. And obviously Bitcoin as an asset for accumulating wealth. But what are the implications, right, of the economic impact of more states getting involved with Bitcoin as a strategic reserve asset, and thereby increasing the ability for financial institutions to adopt Bitcoin as a use case? And what if we do roll out with this CBDC? What are you guys' thoughts?
Well, I'll take a jump in, and I like to point out a little more history before we dive right into that specifically, because there's one state that I'm aware of that actually runs a state public bank. And many people may not be aware that essentially, if a state doesn't have its own public bank, what it does is it essentially holds its reserves inside of one of those top tier banks that you mentioned earlier, one of those top 6 banks typically, or some other bank on Wall Street. And then it borrows against its own reserves and pays interest on that in order to fund its annual budget. Wow. And then we collect, and then that state collects taxes or fees or however it funds its budget to pay that interest and pay back that loan every year. And that's how we end up, creating deficits. And that interest is not doing necessarily much for the state or even the federal government, right? It's helping out the Federal Reserve System and those top tier banks. Now, the alternative to that would be to actually get legislation passed. And I'll point out someone I've been personally acquainted with, Gwendolyn Hall-Smith, who has done a lot of work across multiple states advocating for public banking and advocating for more of a mentality of abundance to build these economic systems on, in order for banks to hold their own reserves, or states, to hold their own reserves and essentially lend them to themselves with a state bank, in which case they either can discount that interest, or that interest can be funding things like small business loans, college loans, first-time homeowner loans, which we're familiar with being funded today through federal programs.
Right.
And then through those federal programs, they fund state agencies. But it's not the same as that interest accumulation actually going directly into those systems within a state for its own control and direction. And so in many ways, I see this concept of states creating their own Bitcoin reserve as kind of a stopgap, as a step in that direction. So without necessarily fighting the whole battle of creating a state public bank, what they are doing is creating a reserve of a deflationary asset that may also be borrowed against in various ways, and may open up different partnerships that they can create through that lending agreement in order to make better use of the reserve, of the interest result from that reserve. And so that's, I think, it's history that needs to kind of inform that conversation in recognizing how that empowers states, especially today, where, like it or hate it, whatever's going on in the federal government can have a major impact, positive or negative, on states and their budgets and the funding for their agencies. And so taking state agency is necessary, I think, to weather the storms and to really take advantage of the positive groundswells that can occur. And this is one of those tools that could be used in order to provide that agency to states.
Fabulous. Now, would you say the same? Would you say the same for a CBDC?
No. I think so. I think stable coins have a really important role to play. And, I think that US dollar dominance benefits us in the United States. But I also think that a CBDC gets on a kind of a slippery slope. I think that it would be, it's different. So again, similarly, if a state bank were working with some kind of a stable coin issuance, that would be different than a central bank issued stable coin.
Absolutely.
And that's where, the devil's in the details, if you will, pardon the cliche. Absolutely. But there are some real nuances in how you either centralize or decentralize power, control, and influence in those different models of issuing fast currency that enables economies to thrive.
So, and in the United States, I think we're leaning, based on verbiage from the current administration, we're leaning more towards and leaning away from CBDCs, but leaning more towards the Bitcoin Strategic Reserve as opposed to anything dealing with CBDCs. So that may be good for us overall. But fabulous points, always good insights coming out of you, Ryan. I kind of wish we had 2-3 hours for this call, but unfortunately, you know, we only got the hour, and we are at the last quarter, right? 15-minute mark for the end of the call. I do want to give opportunity to Gerard to come back in. He said he had some additional announcements to make. I do want to also give opportunity for our community to ask questions or say comments. I see Mr. Spellin Tyler is up first. So let us take that route. Do we have any additional insight, though, from our guest speakers? And again, I do apologize. I know it's a very big topic for such a short time frame, but we appreciate you guys helping us to think a little better about what may be happening in the space for cryptocurrency and getting us a little bit more interested in it. But any last minute comments from you guys before we turn it back over?
Why don't I make my comments, and then we'll turn it over to everybody else to round out the hours.
Yeah.
So the first thing I would like to do is to remind everybody about this event coming up in March. This is Bank and Financial Services putting government budgets on a blockchain. We're going to be talking about the project that we're doing right now. So for those of you that don't know, when RFK Jr. was running for president as an independent, he basically said if he won the election, he would put the U.S. government budget on a blockchain, right? Well, obviously he didn't win, but he was confirmed as a Secretary of State. I'm sorry, a Secretary of Health and Human Services. So we thought, let's talk to HHS about putting the HHS budget on a blockchain. But we thought, hey, that's a really big, complicated, healthcare is complicated. HHS is huge. So let's see if we can do this at a local level first. So we made contact with a local county, and they said to us, listen, we're having a challenge in that we can't track the income to our health department to the outgo. And we've got some programs that are being cut, which are going to impact service delivery, but we don't know which ones. We've been fighting this thing for 2 years. Can we be your pilot? So we're going to work with the local county to put that local county health department income and outgo on the blockchain. And we're looking at budget, we're looking at appropriations, we're looking at spending and tracking.
Yep.
And so the county commissioner that we're working with has oversight over the health department, the IT department, and the audit department. And so she's given us her full blessing. We're in the process of starting that project right now. So if you're interested in that project and you're a GBA member, then you want to join the Budget Accountability and Transparency Working Group. That's a group that meets every week, and they're in the process right now of planning and implementing that project. So it's a long-term project. By the time we get through the local level, the state level, the federal level, and then take it to Doge across the federal budget, it will probably be many years, right? But we're in the process of doing that right now. And Marcus, from an accounting perspective, right, we need to, it's not just the money, but it's also the accounting for all that. We're going to need lawyers involved because there's legal issues, there's contract issues, there's privacy issues, right? There's a lot of issues involved in that project. So that's what we're going to be talking about on March 11th from 12 p.m. to 1 p.m. Please hit the link there if you're interested in learning more about that. Also, I'd like to encourage you that if you're not a member of GBA, please join. If you don't want to, if you're a professional, you'd probably want to join as a professional. If you're just kind of learning, curious, you're just in sort of in a student mode, you can join as a student member for $49, or you can just join the newsletter. It's completely free, and that way you'll be updated as to different opportunities coming down the road. And then the last thing I want to say is the blockchain maturity model is gaining full speed. We've now The Oracle Cloud blockchain infrastructure has gone through a BMM assessment. We have another platform that's going through it right now, and a third that just applied. So my biggest concern is that we may not have enough assessors for all the assessments. The government of India just signed an agreement with us. They want to subsidize the cost for BMM assessments of blockchain companies in India to promote that industry. So over the next year or two, you're going to see the blockchain maturity model really gain in stature. It's already being used in RFPs, and some of you guys have seen that post that we just put out. So if you don't know anything about the blockchain maturity model, check it out. There's a lot to learn, and I think it's going to be one of the biggest things in the industry. So those are my only comments. And Charles, I'll turn it over back to you.
Yeah, the BMM is an imperative. I mean, it should be a staple for all our government agencies and really even businesses in a whole. Anyone interacting with any kind of blockchain solution, the first stop should be the GBA website. Is this solution approved, so to speak, or have they been assessed by the BMM? So I'm glad we're doing that kind of work. And I'm always impressed by the caliber, quality, the individuals involved with the Government Blockchain Association, a very prolific association. I encourage anyone, whether you're in business or not, whether you're interested in cryptocurrency or not, blockchain or not, get involved with the GBA. There are some awesome things coming out of it. And so EazyBot is happy to be an organizational member of the GBA. We will continue to support the GBA in all their efforts and try to help this thing grow a little bit further. But that really concludes our session. Let's do the questions. Anyone have comments or questions, just raise your hand. We'll give you a go at it. Tyler, you have a comment or question still, man, my friend? Feel free. Come on in. Anyone, any comments or questions for either Ryan or Marcus or Alex or Gerard? Perfect. And so, Gerard, what is our next? Oh yeah, okay. I'll do that. I didn't see your hand on you. I apologize. Here we go. Here we go. It is coming now, Tyler. Boom. Come on in. Sorry about that.
Yeah, hi. No problems. No problems. I just had a question because when you guys were talking about CBDC, I just recall something with the Trump administration talking about banning CBDCs.
Yeah, they're not going to move. Well, from what we understand, they're not going to move in that direction. I don't think it's the thing that the current administration wants to do. But that gives us what, 4 years, right? So what happens?
Oh, okay. So they put it out, but it's not going to happen.
You're saying the ban's not going to happen, or you're saying?
Yeah, I'm saying that's news that came out from the Trump administration that they were going to ban CBDCs.
Right.
Yeah.
That's our point. CBDCs is not a thing. It's not going to happen in the United States, at least. It's already being done in other countries. But again, that only gives us 4 years, right? So what happens with the next administration? And let's say they're all for CBDCs. What then? So.
And the EU is moving ahead for full steam. So the European Central Bank has a working group. They're actively developing a CBDC. And I had the opportunity to moderate a panel discussion at the German Bundesbank office here in New York between the representative of the Deutsche Bundesbank at the ECB and the Swiss National Bank representative. We were like talking about pros and cons of retail and institutional CBDCs, because there's also slight differences, right? I mean, just one thought, right? I mean, there has been there had been some early traction on a potential CBDC or digital dollar here in the US, right? Giancarlo Esposito, or Crypto Dad, was leading that project. I'm a proponent of CBDCs. It seems mostly, Bitcoiners, crypto enthusiasts think this is like a privacy thing, right? If you listen to Giancarlo Esposito, read what he's saying, he makes a lot of sense, right? He was basically saying the opposite, ignoring the privacy aspect, right, which can be debated. But he's saying if the US wants to maintain its dominance via the dollar, then a CBDC or digital dollar is inevitable, because otherwise the importance of the US dollar will diminish, right? Like all oil and gas transactions, or majority of oil and gas transactions and trade settled in the US dollar, right? And he says if the US doesn't implement the digital dollar, then that could change. Just food for thought, right? I know most crypto enthusiasts are very negative on CBDCs. I view it more like as an inevitable aspect. If you say you leave you and you can design it a certain way that the privacy aspect is maintained, right? Even the Chinese CBDC, the digital renminbi, right? It is not designed in a way that the government can shut you off your money. They don't know necessarily who holds them, right? So it can be designed a certain way, right? It can be used for certain things. I just want to point it out, right? And again, if you're interested in educating yourself or reading a little bit more, read what Crypto Dad Giancarlo Esposito has to say. And there's also like a booklet about the digital dollar project which he used to head.
Did you hear anything about the study or pilot program that was done in Canada related to CBDCs? I don't think it was received very well by the populace there, but the end result is that they steered away from launching or making it a thing in Canada, at least. Or you're saying they're having right now in the EU, it's either underway or it's in pilot phase. Okay, gotcha.
Yeah, it's and I'll put something in the chat. That's like I mean, it's a little bit of dated paper, but it's a pretty good read for those who want to educate themselves more about CBDCs and digital dollar projects.
Yeah, because I'm always curious about something like that. If there's potential for it to be used in the region in which we operate with reference to cryptocurrency, we got to know about it, right? But at this time, like you pointed out, Tyler, it's not something the United States government is doing or getting involved with. Go ahead, Gerard. You had something?
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, Marcus, I don't know if you were there. I was at the Atlantic Council event. They had a convening of all the central banks, and CBDCs was an important thing. It was in Leesburg or some. It was basically in the suburbs of Virginia, near the tail end of 2024. Anyway, a bunch of folks got up talking about their CBDCs, and from my perspective, now they didn't say this out loud, but my perspective was all of their pilots had failed. And so there were a number of pilots that they're doing all over the world. And I think that the reason why so many of the pilots had failed is because they're using the wrong technology, right? They're essentially using traditional blockchains.
Right.
Yeah, which basically is essentially just a record of bilateral transfers, a historical record. And then they're trying to build all the banking functions as smart contracts and off-chain and causing all kinds of problems with scale and just inefficiencies. And I think that they're, to take the concept of a blockchain, which is about decentralization, and centralize it, I think that they're just running into lots and lots of technical issues. So anyway, I just say that as sort of an opinion and status. I think that as much as some people want to do it, I think that they're really running into a lot of technical issues with getting it done. So just my thought, as unqualified as it might be. Right.
Well, thank you. I mean, I think in this whole debate about crypto, CBDC, stablecoins, right? It's always, I think it's important that we all educate ourselves, no matter where you stand on, right? I mean, I know there's a lot of crypto naysayers, and I think it would also be important, if you discuss or argue with somebody who has an opposing view, right, to make sure they fully understand, but you also want to fully understand their position, right? Because it's always easy to say no to something you don't understand, right?
Absolutely.
And that's what we're trying to do here, right? Education.
That's true.
Yeah,
So
exactly.
we appreciate all those insights. Our next topic of discussion will be in March, our next public forum for the cryptocurrency working group, March 27th, I believe, and it's blockchain technology's role in economic inclusion. And that'd be a great time to discuss things like the CBDC and stable coins and such. Gerard, I do need your help really quickly here. Question in the chat: what training programs does GBA have to help government officials? It's a
Oh,
question.
great question.
Yeah.
So GBA membership for all government officials is free. And when you sign into the GBA website, we actually have all of the training available through the Blockchain Trading Academy. So it is a full suite by technology, industry, domain. It's a very, very comprehensive. And then also the GBA offers a Blockchain Foundations course that's free for all GBA members as well. So the key is you need to be logged in. Again, government members are free. And once they go to the menu, and you'll see certified training and online training.
Minimum.
And,
Dr. and Ingrid.
and that's my cue. I got to jump on another call.
All right, no problem. Hey, ladies and gents, we
everybody.
appreciate your presence today for the CWG Public Forum for February 2025. Again, we'll be back March 27th. Any comments, questions, or concerns, feel free to reach out to me. My information is in the chat. You can download the chat now on your devices, but I'm posted there again. And keep in mind our co-chairs, Dr. Smithmeyer and Drs. Ali. I will copy their LinkedIn's for you. They're there in the chat as well. That's it. Appreciate you guys, speakers, Alex and Ryan and Marcus. Again, your presence always welcome in these calls. Thanks so much, guys. Have a good
Thanks for
rest of
having
your
me.
day.
Thanks, Charles. Thank
I'll
you,
stick
everyone.
around for any last minute comments if anyone needs anything from me, but that's our call for the day. Thanks so much, guys.
Thank you.
Have a good day, everybody.
Awesome.